Hello friends, in this presentation we will try to understand functionality of DC microgrid, which is the heading under the subject smart grid, the unit microgrid. So we all are aware of the microgrid. We have already discussed the microgrid is an entity where local generation and the local consumers are connected together, which can be connected, which could be connected to the main grid, or it could also work independently. So that was the definition of a microgrid. And normally we have always seen, and we are still into the AC grid. So what if there is a DC microgrid? So let's see how it works. Why, first of all, why we need a DC microgrid? What was the reason why we are going towards a DC microgrid? The very major reason for this is the renewable energy resources which are available. I mean, so let's say solar and the wind. Most of the production are taking place at DC level. So DC microgrids could be cheaper, and that's an efficient alternative of the non-renewable energy sources. So the wind and the solar voltaic are the more prevalent at every household level nowadays. Every rooftop you will see there are solar panels being installed. So from solar panel we are directly getting a DC energy. So if somehow we are able to use that energy directly, we don't need a mediator between the AC and the DC. That is, we don't need a converter. So that will reduce the cost. Secondly, the lighting scheme in our houses, in the commercial buildings and even elsewhere, nowadays the lighting being used are LEDs. So the most of the LEDs, obviously, they run on what? They run on the DC power. And there are other several gadgets which run on the DC power. And if globally we take an account of it, so 20% of this consumption is on the lightning. Whereas the agency has estimated that 50% of domestic energy is consumed through gadgets which are DC power based. So if this particular number is in having the utility of directly DC, then why not go for a DC microgrid so that DC can be directly supplied to electric to the lightning loads and the gadgets we need that need DC directly. So this way it will save a lot of energy. It will save the cost. It will save additional components being there into the AC system. Next, there are a surprising number of environments such as site office, outdoors, where the devices running on AC are not used. So most of the devices are DC. So if this particular environments are identified and they could be directly connected to the DC, again it will be beneficial. Firstly, they will get surplus of energy, and second, there will be cost cutting just because we don't need any energy conversion devices from DC to AC. And hence, so outdoor places can be equipped with a DC generator. Now, in such a case, DC microgrid could be the sole power provider, which means if suppose an area or a building, or let's say a place, is having all the equipment, all those resources available which works on DC, can have a sole power provider. We don't need to connect to the main grid, and the DC supply could be sufficient for that. So the benefits for this will be elimination of the inverter cost. It will have a simplified installation and the reduced fuel cost. So these are some important points of the driving factors for DC microgrid. Why we should go for the DC microgrid. Now this is a depiction how a DC microgrid can look like. You can see here you have a wind turbine where AC and DC both are being produced. You have a PV panel where DC to DC. You are seeing here the PV will obviously produce a DC source. So there is a DC system. Again, battery will also give you a DC supply. Capacitors will also give you a DC supply. So you can see electric vehicle will also give you a DC supply. So the output load could be a DC load or could be AC load. See, if we have only DC load, if let's say we don't have an AC load, then we can directly have this DC connections connected together to the DC loads. So this particular connectivity will show you nothing but a DC microgrid. Now this doesn't mean that it will not have an AC interconnection. Yes, it will definitely have an AC interconnection, but along with that, it will have a directed DC connection to the DC loads as well. So this is how a DC microgrid will look like. So as we have seen in the earlier pictorial representation, the DC microgrid comprises of, first of all, the generation part, that is DC power generation. You have seen there were fuel cells, solar PV panels, or the micro wind turbines. Then you have also seen the DC electrical storage, that is through batteries and the supercapacitors. And then the wiring and the control, that is the DC power distribution. Then you have DC gadgets, such as examples are laptops, telephones, satellite TV, controllers, etc. And the last part of the DC grid is the DC lightning. So these are the major components which will be comprising the DC microgrid. So we can summarize here briefly that what is the purpose of DC microgrid. So basically we need to to increase the introduction to the distributed PV cell, we need to inculcate among the people to more and more move towards the renewable energy sources. So that's why we should move towards the DC microgrid. Secondly, there is a reduce in the energy dissipation. Obviously, since we are using DC, so dissipation of energy in comparison to AC is less. So the facility cost will be reduced. There is no conversion unit being required where DC to AC conversion takes place. So that the entire entity or that entire converter unit has to be removed. Third point is supply power to the load. So it will be supplying power to the load through a regular distribution line. We don't need to put any separate lines or any emergency light. Even in the blackout conditions, also it will be helpful through the regular distribution line. So this is how basically DC microgrid operates, and these are the following are the special purposes why DC microgrid is being implanted. So I hope you would have understood this particular section. Thank you very much.